Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to At the Book here for this Thursday, June the 23rd. I'm Zach Ewing, along with Devin Jackson and Spencer, the Guru Urquhart. Jim Derry is on vacation, so we can actually sit back, relax, and have a nice conversation today, boys. Jim is not here to take over, and I will say this: Jim is the guy I go to when you put something up there and it's not controversial and it's a sport maybe people haven't thought a lot about, and you're like, I need somebody to say something. Jim Derry, will you say something? And he'll
Oh, he'll
always come
stir
up
the
with something
pot.
to
Yeah.
say.
Oh,
It may
yeah.
not be very intelligent, but he'll start the conversation, and that's why we love Jim. But Jim's on vacation, so we hope he's enjoying himself. Although I do want to say right at the top, and I'll mention this again, Jim has a special Datitude coming out tomorrow, vacation edition, with Saints general manager Mickey Loomis. Got a one-on-one interview with Mickey, and so they will discuss all things Saints offseason, free agency, draft, how things are looking going toward training camp next month and the preseason. So we're kind of in that real slow period for the NFL, but that should wet your whistle plenty for the Saints season to come. So check that out. It should drop on all major podcast platforms tomorrow morning. We'll also have links to it on bet.nola.com. And like to remind you guys, yeah, exactly. See, this guy gets it.
Uncle Big Nick's fired up.
This guy gets it. We'd like to remind you that we are brought to you by the Caesars Sportsbook. You can, if you have not already, sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook by going to nola.com/Caesars. And when you do that, if you're a new user, you get a $1,500 bet risk-free. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can bet on anything you like. You might bet on who will be the number one pick in the NBA draft tonight, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. And if you're wrong, you get your stake back. You get a bonus money in the equal form of that bet, and you basically get to try it all over again. And so your odds obviously go dramatically up when you have two chances to get that winning bet. With that said, let's talk some NBA draft, guys. And Devin and I have been texting back and forth about this all day. And Spencer, I'm sure you've seen it too. The odds. I mean, this is where I spoke at a conference last week where it was, how do you write about odds? And one of the things is, well, sometimes the odds tell a story beyond just saying which side is favored. And so far, with the NBA draft coming up in about 3 hours, the odds have most certainly told the story. And I'm going to let Devin recap it because I think he knows best. But basically, we have gone on a seesaw between Jabari Smith and Paolo Banchero being the number one pick, or being the heavy favorite to be the number one pick, to the point where we legitimately are not 100% sure who it will be here tonight, Devin.
Yeah, so it started obviously back in the draft lottery. Everyone thought it was going to be Jabari Smith as the top, and that's what it was. I think Jabari opened at, I want to say minus 125, I think, or something like that. And then it was like plus 175 for Chet. Pretty much has been them all along. And then Banchero, he was like as high as 20-1 on June 9th. And then you get to this week, that's when Banchero starts getting a lot more, money in on him. See his odds lower. I think by Tuesday or Wednesday, he was like the second highest to be the number one pick. But still, Jabari Smith comfortably is a lead. But then last night happened, and it was like around 9. I think it was like minus 300 for Jabari Smith still. But then by the time like midnight came around, it was even money. It was 115 for both Banchero and for Jabari Smith, and then by 12:30, it was Banchero as the lead at minus 130, blossom all the way up to minus 200 around 1 a.m. and then
it was amazing to just watch it in real time. I mean, it was just dropping every 5 minutes you check, and Paolo Banchero's odds had dropped every single time to some new number.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was telling you, it probably hasn't been the craziest thing in the NBA since the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George situation a couple years ago when it dropped in the middle of the night. So that was kind of surreal to watch because it was like the first time you saw like the betting odds change dramatically at like right before your eyes. It wasn't like anything like, after a couple of hours, it was like every minute it was like ticking towards Banchero. And then, woke up this morning and you caught this, but, Adrian Wojnarowski, he tweeted out still 1, 2, 3, Jabari, Chet, and Paolo, going in that order. And
which was just so we're all clear about what's going on here. That was the opposite of the way the bets were going overnight. Overnight, it looked like all the momentum was with Banchero to be the number one pick. Now, all of a sudden, it was back to Jabari Smith. And when Woj says something, as we all know in the NBA, I mean, usually that's gospel, right? Like, so Jabari Smith is going to be the number one pick.
Yeah, you would think so, but now we don't know. After that fiasco last night, it definitely has you wonder. I know you put some down on Banchero odds, Zach, as all that was unfolding.
I did. I tried to follow that steam, and it happened, by the way, in the NFL draft. If you guys remember, with Travon Walker, he was not really mentioned as one of the top candidates to be the number one pick. It was a lot of Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe you heard a couple of linemen, a couple of other guys. You did not hear a lot of Travon Walker until a couple of days before the draft, and all of a sudden, am I frozen, guys?
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm losing you. All right, there you are. Yeah, a couple of days before the draft, all of a sudden the odds started to go into Travon Walker's favor to be the number one pick, and I followed that steam and won a bet, as did a lot of people. And so I was trying to follow the Paolo steam at about midnight last night. Unfortunately for me, it looked like that steam was wrong because Adrian Wojnarowski, as you said, Woj bombed this morning at about 7:45 Central Time. Hey, Jabari Smith expected to be the number one pick. So at that point, all the sports books take the odds off of the board. You can't bet on it anymore. A couple of them, I think FanDuel, DraftKings put it back up a couple of hours later with Jabari Smith like minus 10,000. I mean, to where you couldn't make any money on it, right? Like they'll put him back up, but unless you were willing to be stupid and put money on Chet Holmgren, for instance, who at this point does not look like he'll be the number one pick, you weren't going to make any money on it. Well, a few hours after that, maybe around noon, 1 o'clock, that number started to come back toward Paolo again. And so from minus 10,000, even with what Woj said this morning, these are what our current odds are now. And it's still Jabari Smith by a decent amount. And this was an hour ago. And actually, it's moved even more toward Banchero. It's minus 225 for Smith, plus 175 for Banchero right now. So, like, even with Adrian Wojnarowski, who, as we said, when he says something in the NBA, Spencer, it's gospel. I mean, you can take it to the bank. Now it looks like Paolo's back in the mix.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Paolo because I was stubborn with the NFL draft. I was saying, I'm not buying the Trayvon's team. It's going to be Hutchinson, but boy, was I wrong there. I think Paolo is going to be it. I mean, it's just that someone knows something we don't, and that person that knows it, they must think Paolo's all but a lock to be the number one pick. I know Woj has a lot of sources, probably the most out of all the NBA insiders, but I think one of these Vegas insiders has the inside track on this Paolo thing. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting, but that's who I'm going with.
I mean, it's really this fascinating behind the scenes, like, because if Woj called you right yesterday and said, hey, I can't make this public for whatever reason, but Spencer, I'm telling you, Jabari Smith's going to be the number one pick. I'm telling you. I mean, you empty your bank account on that, right? Like whatever you have in your sportsbook balance would be going on Jabari Smith. Woj knows this stuff. But there's somebody somewhere else who knows something, who must be more confident than they are in Woj, that it's going to be Paolo. It's a fascinating behind the scenes discussion. And so when Adam Silver, and we say 7 o'clock. This is the NBA. The draft ain't going to start at 7 o'clock. It's going to be like 7:25 before they even put the magic on the clock. So like 7:30, Adam Silver will step to the podium. The Orlando Magic select. And I don't, like, for the first time in a long time in an NFL or NBA draft, we're a couple hours before the draft, and I have no idea what he's going to say.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because, like, this could be the biggest story of the offseason, right? Like, is Woj always going to be correct now? Is his sources leading him wrong? So it's going to be interesting to see if Vegas is right again or were they just fooled by something? I don't know. Me and you talked about, Zach, that maybe there's a trade looming, between maybe the Rockets and Magic, or, the Thunder and Magic or somebody else outside of the top 5 that we just don't know about yet, that they know about and expect to happen probably minutes before the draft starts. So it's going to be very fascinating to watch, because it's like that was like usually you see, the odds being talked about, hours before the draft. Like, I would expect something like this to happen today, not like in the middle of the night before the draft. So it's very interesting to see how it's unfolded, and probably one of the more exciting betting stories that's happened this year, because you just saw the momentum shift in every sports book. It just wasn't like one or two.
And this is where sports betting is fun, even if you're not putting a lot of money on it. The stories that you kind of are privy to, the regular sports world, like listen, we have a fantastic sports section in the Times-Picayune. You're not going to read about that in the pages. Number one, because it happened in the middle of the night. Number two, because it's not like the mainstream. People will say, okay, it's going to be one of these 3 guys, but they're not going to tell you the way that the momentum has shifted, like the odds will. And just to be clear, Woj, by the way, here's the language of his tweet that was sent at 7:41 a.m. Central Time today. As team boards finalized today, the 1, 2, 3 of the NBA draft is increasingly firm per sources. Jabari Smith to Orlando, Chet Holmgren to Oklahoma City, and Paolo Banchero to Houston. Okay, so increasingly firm. That's not like he's saying this is what it's going to be. Increasingly firm, as we all know, is like, okay, he's hedging his bets there a little bit, no pun intended. He's, we don't know for sure that that's what it's going to be. And as you said, Devin, there could be a trade. In fact, there's already been a trade. Orlando traded its second-round pick, one of its second-round picks, to the Lakers. And sometimes when teams make one trade, it's a prelude to another trade. I don't know. I mean, maybe Jabari Smith will end up with the Magic, but maybe it won't be at pick number 1. And to that end, kind of the next pivot point of the draft after number 1 is at number 4. And so at Caesars, you can also bet on number 4 odds. And we think that Smith, Holmgren, and Banchero will be 1, 2, and 3 in some order, although you do see Chet and Paolo on this list in case they do slip to number 4. The conventional wisdom has been all week that number 4 will be Jaden Ivey, the Purdue point guard, who's a terrific player. If you watch college basketball, you know that. But guys, this is really the next pivot point of where the draft is going to go.
Yeah. I'm thinking Jaden goes here to I believe it's the Kings that have the 4th pick. So I'm thinking he'll slide in there next to De'Aaron Fox, since last year they traded Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis. So they're kind of lacking another guard next to Fox. So I'm thinking Ivy will, assuming they keep the pick, will go here at 4.
Yeah, I think that's the conventional wisdom, and that makes a lot of sense. So, look, things can change rapidly, even more so in an NBA draft than they do in an NFL draft. There's always trades flying quickly up and down the board. But I think it's fair to say that after that number 4 pick, the next maybe most likely pivot point in this draft where somebody could get into the top 10 might be the New Orleans Pelicans at number 8. They hold the number 8 pick from the Lakers. And here are their odds. And what's interesting about this is Dyson Daniels, the G League Ignite point guard. I think that it's no secret that's who they would prefer. Now, there's no guarantee he gets to number 8, and that's why he's at 3-1. I think Osman Dieng, who played in New Zealand last year, is probably their next choice. Maybe Shaedon Sharpe, who never actually played at Kentucky. He redshirted there and then entered the draft. But you'll also see here, Devin, like, you look at some of these guys. Agbaji, his pick over under is 13.5. If you look further down, Tari Eason of LSU, his pick over under is like 18.5. And then you have Jaden Ivey, who's obviously supposed to go at number 4. Caleb Houston's supposed to be a second rounder. And so built into these odds is at least a possibility that the Pelicans could trade this pick and either maybe move into the top 5 and try to get a Jaden Ivey. I think that's unlikely. Or maybe more likely, move back, add more picks, or add a veteran and pick one of these guys a little later on tonight.
Yeah, the unique thing about this is that the top 10 usually doesn't go as expected. I know a lot of people have talked about, these guys going in the top 10. Someone like Dyson Daniels, he could be gone as early as like 5 or 6. And then all of a sudden, what are the Pelicans going to do then? Because it's very clear they want a playmaking guard to add to the mix of what they already have. They already got plenty of wings and wing depth. So I think for them, do they go best pick available, best player available? Do they want to trade back and maybe see what other offers they can get? Because, I mean, they're in a good position where, like, even if they don't get the player they want, they're going to get someone that can come in and contribute at some point. They're in a position where they don't need that person to start right away, which is probably the best of probably the teams ahead of them. So I think for them, you look at this list and even looking at some of the over-unders on where they'll be picked, like Zhang right now, he's like 10.5. So you move back to 9 or 10, maybe he's still there. Then you look at, obviously, Dyson Daniels. I mean, I think he's at 6.5. So there's no guarantee he's going to be there. Maybe a Keegan Murray falls out of the top 5 and he could be there at 8. So, I mean, there are so many possibilities that can happen with what the Pelicans are going to do. It's probably unlikely they get a Jaden Ivey or Murray or a player like that. But clearly, I mean, they're want to add a playmaker or a shooter. So, to me, I think if Dyson Daniels isn't at 8, I think they may go someone like Shaedon Sharpe, and if they move back, maybe they get someone like a AJ Griffin or Johnny Davis. So I see value in those two guys on this list.
Yeah, I want to get your take too, Spencer. I think the interesting thing about the Pelicans is they are a much more complete roster than most teams who have top 10 picks, and so they don't necessarily need to draft for an extreme need.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, which is why they could definitely trade back, because a lot of teams picking up here more desperate to add a certain player, or the Pelicans can just kind of, let the board come to them and just take someone that'd be a good role player, a good complement to what they already have. So yeah, I'm thinking if they trade back, then maybe Johnny Davis. I mean, he could even go to him at pick 8 potentially. I think he'd be a good fit, be a good shooter, come off the bench. I think they'll go guard, either him or Shaedon Sharpe, or I feel like if Dyson Daniels falls, then they'll definitely keep the pick and go with him. I mean, they could go with a bigger, big like a forward type. Jiang's in the mix and AJ Griffin, but I think the best value here would probably be Johnny Davis, because I think there's a chance they trade back and he could still be there.
You do not as often see in the NBA the trade back just a couple of picks. You see that a lot in the NFL, and I think one of the reasons for that is it's easier to value that. Okay, a third rounder is worth 2 picks in the first round, an extra second rounder is worth 4 picks in the first round, whatever it is. There's only 2 rounds in the NBA, and a lot of times, although, I mean, listen, Herb Jones was a second rounder. Nikola Jokic was a second rounder. Like, there's good players to be found in the second round. It's just it's just a matter of, the percentages are against you there, but it's a little bit harder to just move back a couple of spots and still get some sort of value in return. Not saying it's impossible, but it is a little bit harder. So with that said, guys, let's call our shot here. Devin, you first. Either who do the Pelicans end up with at number 8, or do they trade up or down?
My gut tells me they trade down, and I think they get a player like AJ Griffin or Johnny Davis. I just think Daniels is probably going to be gone. I could see someone trading up for Zhang and value his upside. So I think they trade down and take a AJ Griffin, Johnny Davis type player.
All right, Spencer, call your shot.
All right. Yeah, I know I just said I could see it going in that direction, but I'm thinking one of either Daniels or Sharpe.
No. Calling your shot is not one of either. We're.
Well, I know that's what I was about to call it. I was about to call it, and I'm going to say that I'll go with Sharpe. I think Sharpe's going to end up the pick there at 8.
And he's a mystery. I mean, listen, he's an interesting story. He was a 5-star player, one of the top players in the country out of high school. Went to Kentucky because he graduated high school a year early. I don't think he could play college ball yet. And so he redshirted and then said, well, forget this, I'm going to the draft. So he never actually played there. We don't know how good he is. And I'm going to go kind of in the middle of you guys. I'm going to go with Ousmane Dieng. And the reason I say that is because I do think Dyson Daniels will be gone. I think Zhang is the only other player the Pelicans are really interested in there at 8. And I think they'll grab him because I don't know that they're going to get value in a trade. So that's where I'm at. So that is the NBA draft. Starts at 7 o'clock tonight. Again, number one pick odds all over the place. We're going to check them again before we end the show here in a few minutes. But for right now, it looks like Jabari Smith is still the number one pick. That's certainly what Woj says for ESPN. But I'll tell you what, guys, I'm fascinated, even though I don't have any special attachment to any of these players or any of these teams. I'm just fascinated to see how it ends up. Of course, I hope it's Banchero because I have money on it, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I think, similar to the NFL draft, how things kind of played up. I mean, even before, Trayvon Walker was a pick, there was people that still didn't believe that he was going to go number one. So I think this situation is a little bit different because I think there has to be some merit to it unless, it just didn't really happen. But there was some sort of exchange of information that happened last night. And, whether or not it affects who goes number one, I certainly think there's a good chance. I mean, maybe we shouldn't rule out Banchero at 2. I know that Oklahoma City's been infatuated with Chet, but I mean, the way things have trended, I wouldn't even rule out Banchero at 2. So,
yeah, it's very interesting. Most books you can bet on the first pick, the fourth pick, the fifth pick. You cannot bet on the second or third, and that's because you kind of feel like if you bet on the first one, you're also predicting how numbers 2 and 3 will go in this draft because there is that clear-cut top 3 that we're talking about. So we'll have to see what happens both with the number one pick and with the Pelicans. As we move on, a few other things. College World Series is still rolling on in Omaha. The championship series is almost set. It's going to be the Oklahoma Sooners against the winner of a game going on right now between Ole Miss and Arkansas. Last I looked, it was scoreless in that game. Let's see if we can get an update on it.
Yeah, Ole Miss leads 1-0.
Okay.
Bottom of 6 now.
So that game rolling right along, 1-0 Ole Miss. The winner gets Oklahoma in the championship series that will start Saturday. Man, look, we told you all along, you don't want to bet favorites in that thing. Tennessee didn't even make it to Omaha. Stanford and Texas were the favorites once they got to Omaha, and to an extent, Arkansas, who's still alive, obviously. But it's very difficult to predict. Find you a long shot you like and go with that.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week. We said Ole Miss or Arkansas as potential sleeper picks, and one of them is.
Why do you think I was looking up the score? Because it's live TV. Go back to the beach. Go back to the beach. All right?
Oh, Jim.
That's why I'm looking up the score. All right, professional baseball, and I do want to say we are going to dig way into Major League Baseball on Monday. We're going to dedicate a lot of our Bayou Bets show to Monday, and that's partly because we do have on Eric Biggio, who is Caesars baseball handicapper on Monday. I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say, both about futures odds like this and just about handicapping baseball from a game-to-game perspective. So really looking forward to talking to Eric on Monday, 4 o'clock live, Bayou Bets. But for now, this is our World Series odds. Interesting that the Yankees have been off to such a hot start. Aaron Judge has 27 home runs. He's on pace to break the Yankee record of 61 by Roger Maris. But the Dodgers are still the favorite. Are you guys surprised by that?
Not really. I mean, the Dodgers is such a long season, and the Dodgers are still built to make a deep postseason run. They did lose Walker Buehler, though, for a while, and while he's not out for the season, it's unlikely he'll be back to his old self. Like, even if he does come back, it'll probably be late in the year and might have to just be a reliever. So that's a big blow. But, I mean, overall, though, the Dodgers are still really stacked, and they'll probably make a move or two at the deadline to bolster their pitching. So I can see why they're still favored. The Yankees, though, have been rolling. But the Dodgers, to me, they should still be the favorite.
Yeah, I agree. I think in a playoff scenario, although I will say this, Aaron Judge gets the headlines, and the nickname Bronx Bombers is so prevalent in Yankees lore. I mean, going back obviously to the 1920s, but even in the 50s and 70s and 90s and 2000s, they had these great hitting teams. This is very much a run prevention team. The pitching staff is unbelievable, led by Garrett Cole, and also Nestor Cortez Jr. is having an unbelievable year. The bullpen's unbelievable. The defense is good. This is, Aaron Judge is going to hit home runs, and Giancarlo Stanton will hit home runs. They got other good hitters too. But this is a team where they're built to beat you 4-2 every night. And they've played, I think, a couple series against the Rays, who are obviously a good team in the last week. And that's what they're doing. They're beating them. I think they're like 5-2 against them in these two series, and they're beating them like 4-2, 5-1. Like Tampa Bay is not able to score on that pitching staff.
Yeah, they finally got some depth to that pitching staff. For a while there was like Garrett Cole and Severino had been hurt, but now they got Luis Severino back. Jameson Taillon's been pitching really good. Jordan Montgomery, even the fifth starter, he's been respectable. So it's like, yeah, they're just really deep there. And that's what they were lacking compared to the Dodgers, was they never had the pitching. But now that it looks like they got the pitching too, that might finally get that. I hope this doesn't happen, that long-awaited Dodger-Yankees World Series. As a Cardinal fan and just a baseball fan in general, I hate to see those teams make it, but they're just so stacked.
I guess I see what you're saying, and I would hate it if it happened every year. But because it hasn't happened, and they've been sort of the Titanics in each various. That's bad, but they've been the North Star in each league for so long. It's like it would be pretty fun to see it. It would certainly get good ratings. Major League Baseball wouldn't mind. So we'll talk a lot more baseball. We'll talk World Series odds, but also division odds, win totals, award winners, MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, things like that. On Monday, again at 4 o'clock, with Eric Biggio of Caesars. He is their baseball handicapper, so that's going to be a lot of fun. The other thing starting Monday is Wimbledon. And Jim, if you're still listening, I need to know if you're going to lay your Jannik Sinner, Amanda Anisimova parlay again, like you did for the French that paid like 700 to 1. Novak Djokovic is the favorite here. Of course, we're on grass. Rafael Nadal won the French. He's the clay court king. He's at plus 650. Second favorite is actually, I was a little surprised by this, but it's the Italian Matteo Beretini. Got to say his name like that. He's the second favorite. And you see down the list there, John Isner, a big-time server at 50 to 1. And Jim, Jannik Sinner, also at 50 to 1. Any of you guys interested in a Sinner Anisimova parlay?
I think I'm going to stay away from that one. I look, that it's great for Jim, but I don't think I'm going to get too deep into that and, wake up at like, what time do these games usually start? Is this the American course, or is it?
This Wimbledon is in London. It's outside London.
Yeah, it'll be early.
So it's the last matches of the day will be like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. We're gonna have tennis Q&A with Devin. No, the U.S. Open is at the end of August. Nobody ever watches it because it coincides with the first week of NFL. But it's outside London. I've actually been to Wimbledon to see a match. It's a lot of fun. The women's odds, by the way, or as they say at Wimbledon, it's not women and men, it's ladies and gentlemen. Iga Swiatek, who won the French Open, she's a big favorite. You see Coco Gauff, who was in the final. And then the name that will get everybody talking, whether you are a huge tennis fan or not, is listed, sixth there, and that's Serena Williams. She's still one short of Margaret Court's all-time Grand Slam record. She's coming back from injury, obviously getting older. The big question is here, could she win another one? And if she does, the grass courts on Wimbledon, where her power is sort of accentuated, might be the place. She's 16 to 1. I don't know. It'd be a great story, guys.
Yeah, it would certainly be one to follow. Sorry, I didn't mean to come off like I didn't know anything about tennis. I watched my fair share of tennis matches over the years, but Serena, seeing her win in Wimbledon, I mean, grew up watching her playing in the Wimbledon final. So it'd be cool for her to just make it, to the final. I think that will be a pretty big story, especially over the last couple of years, with everything she's dealt with. So I think it will be a great story.
Oh, I mean, listen, if she stays healthy through the first few rounds and looks pretty good and gets into, like, let's say the fourth round of 16, it will become a very big story worldwide, but especially in the U.S., how Serena is doing and how far she can go. She had her first match today, I want to say, of her comeback in one of the warm-up tournaments, and she was playing in doubles with the name you see two names above her, Ons Jabeur, who's a Turkish player. and it was Jabeur who left that match with an injury, and so Serena wasn't really able to play. They had to default out of the tournament because of Jabeur's injury. But it'll be interesting. She still may be able to get into a draw. Wimbledon does start Monday, so not a lot of matches, not a lot of points she's played this year. Whether her body holds up is the big question in the first week of the tournament, and then we'll see. We'll see what she does in the second week. Also this weekend, NASCAR is in Nashville for the Ally 400. Spencer, this is your department, man. Are we going favorites or long shots this week?
Yeah, I've got saved. If you're going favorites, the two to go with would be the Kyle and Kyle show. Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch are both really good here at Nashville. Kyle Larson absolutely dominated this race last year. Led like 80, 90% of the laps. He was just untouchable. It is the next gen car this year though, so it could open things up. I don't think he'll lead that many this year, but he's definitely still at plus 450. I know he's a pretty big favorite for a NASCAR race, but it could still be some value there. And then as far as long shots, there's a few I like. Alex Bowman plus 1,800 could be a good play. And then Kevin Harvick at plus 2,000. I know Harvick's had a rough go of it recently. Hadn't won a race since 2020, but I'm thinking this could be his week because with Daniel Suarez winning last week, that's now 12 regular season winners. And there's only 16 playoff spots. And the way the NASCAR playoffs work, if you win a race, you're automatically in as long as you're in the top 30 in points. So Kevin Harvick, if he doesn't get a win, he might be out of the playoffs. So I think he's going to be, as they say, driving the wheels off that thing to try to get the win this week. Because if he doesn't get one soon, I mean, it would be, I think, the first time in his career that he's ever missed the playoffs.
I like that bet. Kevin Harvick, Bakersfield boy, 20-1. Also, the Travelers Championship on the PGA Tour going on this weekend. Another really good leaderboard late in the first round. Rory McIlroy has the lead. Xander Schauffele is just a shot back. Patrick Cantlay's a couple back. Scotty Scheffler's in the mix. I mean, a bunch of guys who are top 10 in the world, even the week after the U.S. Open, back playing and back on the top of the leaderboard. So a lot of good live betting opportunities from that one. Right now, McIlroy is a plus 220 live favorite, followed by Cantlay plus 450, Schauffele plus 500. So College World Series this weekend. Wimbledon starts Monday. We're going to dig into baseball. Listen, guys, it don't stop. NBA finals are over. The NBA draft is tonight. We're obviously in the slow period for the NFL, but it does not stop, and neither do we. Final thoughts on this Thursday from Spencer the Guru.
Yeah, you're right, Zach. Yeah, it's all gas, no brakes with this sports world, man. There's always something going on. We'll have NFL talk here soon, I'm sure, with training camp will be starting up in a month or so, and then there's all kind of cool stuff. I'm excited for my vacation though. It starts tomorrow. I'll be this weekend. I'm actually going to be at that Nashville NASCAR race. Be my first NASCAR race in person, so I'm super stoked about that.
That'll be fantastic.
Yeah. Credentials for that.
Right? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't mind.
No, listen. You get a credential, you can't be drinking on the infield. So that's It's a little. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to weigh my options. Yeah. But then I'm also going to Busch Stadium the next week for the first time and go see the Cardinals in person. So I'll let y'all know how the trip goes. It should be fun.
Who do the Cardinals have in that game?
The Marlins. The Marlins. So
maybe you get to see a Sandy Alcantara, who's I think the NL Cy Young favorite. So could be fun.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was thinking. The Marlins, I mean, they're not that great, but they've got some good pitching, so it could make for some interesting action there. Hopefully the Cards can get the dub, but we'll see.
And Devin Jackson, your final thoughts as we head into this NBA draft tonight?
I just want to see what happens tonight. Honestly, it's been fascinating to watch the last 24 hours and following, the number one pick, but, also see who the Pelicans end up adding. I think it will be, whoever they end up selecting, I think it'll be interesting because, there's a good chance that, locally, if they get like a Zhang or Dyson Daniels, not a ton of people know a lot about these guys here at the top. I feel like every other year, all the top 15, top 20 players. I think this year is more spread out than ever with the game going international. So I'm very interested to see what unfolds tonight and very interested to see what happens from a betting perspective because I think whatever happens, I think it's going to be a story regardless.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to that as well. One thing that we will do after the draft on bet.nola.com, you can look at it, check it out tomorrow. We're going to take a look at how championship odds change after the draft. and how Rookie of the Year odds change after the draft to see who goes where. I don't know that there's a player in this draft who's going to dramatically change championship odds. I would be surprised at that, but maybe Rookie of the Year odds change. And there will be some trades tonight, too, and that could change championship odds. Kyrie Irving, it looks like, is going to be on the move sometime in the next couple of weeks. I don't know that it would be tonight, but, of course, with draft picks involved, it's always a possibility. So keep your eye out for that. And my final thought, as I said, tune in Monday, 4 o'clock. I'll be talking with Eric Biggio of Caesars. He is their baseball handicapping expert, and we're going to dig into Major League Baseball on Monday. Spencer, enjoy your vacation. Devin, I know you're going out of town this weekend too. I'm going to run the ship. Jim Derry's going to sun himself at the beach and come back in a not-so-cranky mood. No, he won't do that. He's not going to do that. But we will keep the ship afloat. Tune in Monday at 4 o'clock for Bayou Bets. Sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook if you haven't already. NOLA.com/Caesars. Get the bonus. Get our promo code by going to NOLA.com/Caesars. For Spencer the Guru and Devin Jackson, I'm Zach Ewing. This has been At the Book.